Alrighty. Okay, guys. Alrighty. YouTube video number 1. This has been a long time coming, or at least in my mind it has. Speaking to a camera, I'll be honest, is something that I've never found easy, as is just general public speaking. That being said, I do believe that the more I do this, the easier it will become. Similar to posting on TikTok. When I first started posting on there, it was very, probably not to the same extent as this. Obviously, it's very hard to compare posting TikToks, 30-second clips where I'm not talking compared to this, but I am sure that that level of anxiety will alleviate with time, and the friction that I've built in my mind will also subside. I guess with that, before I start, I want to say that if you are someone that is watching my first video, it's very likely that you are one of the people that have pushed me to take this step today. The amount of support that I've been shown over the last few months, suggesting YouTube, and then the last few days after mentioning it has been honestly quite hard to not recognize, but not act on, rather, I guess. So yeah, I will start by saying thank you so much. It honestly means the world, and I'm grateful to have a level of external motivation to push me to do this, because like I said, it is something that I have thought about doing for a while, and even if only subconsciously, have wanted to do. This morning I've woken up a little bit run down. I think my body is definitely fighting something. And with that, there was a slight part of me that thought maybe I'll push this video back and wait till I'm 100%. But a couple of weeks ago now, so not a long time ago, but around the start of this month, I made a promise to myself, and I told myself that on this date, the 17th, I would sit down and I would record. No matter what, no matter how I was feeling, I'll record. Whether or not I post it, that's for me to decide, but at least I've done the hard bit, right? And I guess before I go into talking a bit about myself beyond TikTok and the level you guys know me at right now, I want to talk about keeping promises to yourself in the same regard as I kept my promise to post this video, or at least record it. I think that if you are going to keep a promise... I'm back. I got a phone call, but the phone is now on airplane mode, so no more interruptions. What I was saying is, before I get into what I do outside of the gym and allow myself to allow you guys to get to know me better, I think I will speak a little bit more about keeping promises to yourself and why I think it's so important, kind of tying into the whole promise I kept to myself of recording this video today. I say this because I think by keeping promises to yourself, it's kind of the first and most important step of building a stack of undeniable proof that you are the person you say you are, which is ultimately what will make you a more confident person, which will change the way you carry yourself, which will change, I guess, the whole trajectory of your life. I'm going kind of rushing into this, but I'll say a little phrase that I like. I actually heard it from Michael Smoke the first time. He phrased it from someone else, but the phrase, or the quote rather, reads, "Confidence is not built by shouting affirmations in a mirror, rather by building a stack of undeniable proof that you are the person you say you are." Now, I really like this, and I think it's one of those quotes that you hear once, and I personally have never forgot. I think it's one thing to preach things like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be successful in this regard, or that, but without actually making actions and building a stack of proof supporting those ideologies, that's very wavering confidence, or at least in my opinion it is. An example I can give, or how I can kind of explain this, is imagine you have a friend, right? And this friend often makes promises to you. He tells you he's going to do this thing or that thing, and quite often, or even not quite often, but occasionally, he doesn't follow through with those promises. I think it's fair for me to assume that with time, you will start to question this friend, whether it's with trust, or you may even start to hold a certain level of the words give me. Resentment to this friend. You're no different. If you tell yourself, I'm going to do this thing on this day, and the day comes and you don't do it, what are you telling yourself? It's going to be hard to be confident in yourself and believe in yourself if you keep making these promises and not upholding them. With that, I do think that it is very important you make realistic promises, ones that aren't too ambiguous, otherwise it kind of takes the point away. It's very easy to justify not doing things. For example, today I could have been like, I've woken up, I'm not feeling 100%. It's probably, or maybe it would be more wise to make this YouTube video when I am feeling better. And sure, there is, like I said, some justification in that. And I'm sure if I tried, I could flip my brain to be like, that's fine. I think with many things, it's more important to aim for just getting it done rather than perfection. Similar with posting on TikTok. For a while there, I was like, I'm gonna wait till I look this way, I'm this strong, in this stage of my life. And I feel like when you have that mentality, you never really will reach that point where you do feel ready. It's kind of similar to posting on YouTube. I could wait for the perfect time where I was stress-free in my external life, where I feel like I had lots to talk about. But I ultimately came to the realization that day will never come. Talking to a camera as such is never going to get easier for me. Anyways, I'm sure you guys are already starting to gather how my mind works. It's very easy for me to go from subject to subject. My mind is always racing. And that's kind of how I do imagine this YouTube, at least this car section, to be. Whatever's on my mind, whether it be journal entries from the week, whether it be a topic of philosophy that I want to cover, or anything in between, that's what I plan on talking about. That's it. Before I continue to ramble, the idea behind this video was to cover who I am outside of the gym, or at least what I do for my professional life. So a bit about myself. My name's Jack. I think that much is out there already. I am 22, from Australia, Sydney. And I guess how far should we go back? We'll go back to high school. So growing up, throughout high school, I was never really sure what I wanted to do, what path I wanted to follow. And I think that's something that a lot of younger people struggle with. I wasn't sure what I wanted to study. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to university. I was really unsure. And it was towards the late years of high school. So in Australia, that was around 16, 17, 18, when that really began to stress me out. Thinking that I know I want to put my energy somewhere. It's just, where do I apply that focus and that effort towards? But I had no idea. My initial plan was, after graduating, to begin a course or a degree of psychology. I thought that it was perfect. I was very interested in the mind and why our brain operates the way it does on a psychological level. And then I would also be able to help people. It ticked those boxes and it was perfect. So that was my plan. However, before I jumped into that, after graduating, I did a course in community services. And it was through this course that I was lucky enough to be introduced to a place, I'm not going to say the name, but a place of disability support. And I was given the opportunity to volunteer at this place. And then, funny enough, since then, for the last almost 4 years now, I have worked there as a disability support worker. And I really enjoyed that. Still, the first year or two, I was with the intention of starting psychology. During that time, I traveled a bit, Spain, Iceland, Italy, and that is some of the best things I've ever done. I think solo traveling is something that everyone should experience at least once. I feel like all that time alone does really give you the opportunity to better understand yourself, especially when you're in such remote places with no reception. You've got really nothing to do but talk to yourself and kind of, work through these thoughts that you may otherwise not. Anyways, years went by, and I started to the idea of going to psychology was less and less appealing. I still remember very well, it was through a friend who was studying psychology at the time. She was a few years older, and she kind of explained to me what the course is really like, what you learn about, and what your opportunities are. And after that conversation, I thought, maybe this isn't for me. So I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to continue to work a role where I could help people. So I kept my eyes open, and it was actually through the gym that I met this guy who was going through the academy for the fire and rescue of our state, which is essentially, in Australia, it's firefighting mixed with first responding and rescue. And he told me about this process. He told me about the way what the job entails, the shift work, and everything. That instantly, as soon as I heard it, it ticked all the boxes, and I was pretty hooked. It's a job where I can stay physically active, mentally active. I can help people, I can serve my community, work as part of a team. As soon as I heard about it, I was locked. Now, this was during 2024 when I first found out about it, and I was planning on applying. No, this was 2023. Fast forward, the recruitment was meant to begin in 2024, so I had studied all the year leading up to it. We found out the recruitment got pushed back to 2025. I was quite heartbroken initially, just because of how much time I'd spent preparing for it. That being said, I very quickly was able to switch that mindset from, what a shame, to, I've got all this preparation now. I can use that for next year. While I have this 6 or 8 month gap, I can go traveling again. So I did. Anyways, guys, fast forward, because I'm beginning to ramble, to 2025. Last year, I applied early on in the year, in March, and then after 6 or so months of aptitude tests, psychometric evaluations, emotional intelligence tests, physical tests, group interviews, panel interviews, video interviews, a big culling process, I found that I made it in. Now, this was honestly, receiving the letter of acceptance has been one of the best days of my life. I have never wanted anything remotely as bad as I wanted to make it into the fire rescue. It still doesn't really feel real to me at all. Even taking back to the first stage, the aptitude. I was not very studious in school, although looking back, I wish I was. I wish I tried harder in school. Alas, I wasn't very studious. So even for me, teaching myself or relearning basic things like multiplication, long division, that was stuff that is quite basic on paper, but for me, I had to relearn it. So I would spend up to 3 hours every night studying maths, preparing for the deductive reasoning, numerical, abstract, mechanical. So I spent time every night preparing for this test. I made it through that. I then continued that trend of studying or preparing, and then eventually I made it in. So that's where I'm at right now. My academy starts in just over 2 months. Oh, that guy's got a Batman sticker in his car. It's so cool. So the academy starts in 2 months, and then during that time, it's going to be rather flat out. My days will be 12-hour days, and it's an hour and a half away from home, but I'm sure we'll be able to make it work. I'm still going to try and maintain the frequency to posting on TikTok and YouTube. This car drive talk part has been quite all over the place. I didn't really come into this with any structure or script per se. I knew that I wanted to talk about what I'm doing for work and what the future looks like, but past that, there were no real plans. I mentioned it earlier on, I do have a lot of thoughts quite often that I usually journal about. Sometimes I will include these thoughts condensed in posts or captions of my TikTok, but I think that I'm going to take this time driving to the gym and filming YouTube videos to talk about these thoughts. And that's what a lot of these car drives will be. Now, as we're approaching the gym, we'll actually have some gym conversation. Today is a modified push session is what I would call it. So what that looks like for me is I will start with a incline press with my arms flared. So it's essentially a flat press, but bench is angled incline. Following that is a shoulder press. Following that is biceps, just a preacher curl, followed by a tricep movement, and then calves. So it's a very chill session. I quite enjoy it. From memory, last week, Atlantis was 6 and a 2.5 for 4. The shoulder press was 3 plates and a 15 for 6. Biceps was 96.3 for 6. Can't remember triceps, but calves were 155 for 6. So that's what we are trying to beat today. We'll see how we go. You'll see how I go. I'm keen. I'll catch you guys in there. I think I'll film my warm-up sets and show you guys how I warm up. Yeah. Alright, anyways. Alright, inside the gym. My top set today will be 6 plates and a 2.5. Last week I got that for 4. So today, my first warm-up is going to be 5 plates. And following that will be 5 and a 10. And then we'll go from there. Obviously, and maybe not so obviously, progressive overload is always the goal. You know, beating last week's logbook. That being said, I think it's important, especially for myself, to remember that progression is not going to be linear. I'm not going to progress every single session, and that is okay. So honestly, matching 4 reps today will be a win. I'm going to try my best regardless. And I hope I remember to talk about this. It's kind of your mindset and how you approach things. If I went into this session being like, I'm tired, it's not going to be a good session, I'd we'll get into it after my set, okay? I am rather happy with how that went. There's more than one way to progress, in my opinion. I think it's quite objective. Obviously, the most easy way to track progression is if you progress in terms of a rep or weight progression. That said, last week, my 4th rep was slower and more of a grinder than this week was. This week, the 4th moved better than last week. That means progression. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. A few of you guys often ask why I use these foam blocks. It is so that I can have a more comfortable or naturally starting position without having to adjust this so that it does not cut my range of motion shorter. It's been a few minutes. I feel quite rested. Assuming I got 5 reps, which I believe I did, then I'm happy with that. Because again, the 5th rep moved better than it did the prior week. Anyways, I want to unrack these weights. Friend behind us, how many sets he has left, and hop on the shoulder press. Movement numero dos. We have a pronated shoulder press. For this, last week I got 3 plates and a 15 for 6. We'll see how we go. Actually, I'm going to chuck a 1.25 on either side. Good man. Yes. For my first time recording a YouTube video. Yeah, currently. It's exciting, but I'm also very nervous. Let's use this to talk. Quite often I get messages being like, I had a terrible workout. How do you deal with this? Not to say this is a terrible workout, but I have definitely fallen short on a couple of lifts. I think it's important to remember that without these sessions where you're not, smashing PRs and progressing at a crazy rate, those good sessions wouldn't feel quite as good, right? So yeah. Anyways, 5. I'm happy with that. It's been a couple minutes. Back off that time. Last week was 3 plates at 10 and a 2.5. This week I am going 3 plates at 10 and 13.75 aside. Last week I got 5 reps, so if I can match that with extra weight, that of course would be amazing. We'll see how we go. Hooray! That's progression. Very happy with that. Okay. Next up is bicep. I think that after this session, I'm going to head upstairs to the posing area and get a little fit of that. We've got 2 more movements to go through. Or 3. 3 more. Cool. One more set here, and then we'll move on to biceps. Sorry, triceps. Shout out to Woodskin. Didn't have my phone fully charged before I left the house, and it was getting a bit scary, but I got the power bank attached now, so that'll get me through. More good news. I actually overshot that first set, that top set. I last week did 91.3. This week was 93.6, and I still matched in reps, so that's progression. It's always good when you overshoot by accident and exceed your expectations. Very happy. So now the back off set is 84.3. Last week we got 5. So you know what that means. 6 is progression, and that will be the goal. Progression. Yay. Super happy with that. Very, very happy. That's awesome. Cool. Now we have 1 set of triceps, followed by calves. And it's posing time. Hell yeah, man. Alrighty. My 1 set of triceps for the session. See how we go. A lot of people ask about these, there's a lot of names from, but this. Look, there is some research to support the idea that it can help motor unit recruitment through a process called PAP, post activation potentiation. But honestly, at this point, it's a matter of habit. Anyways, let's get into it.
Okay, happy with that. All right, sounds good, bro. So I'm going to give it a couple minutes, catch my breath a bit, and then we'll go again. After this, we have cars, and then we'll head upstairs, like I said, and check physique. Okay, cool. One more exercise. What else? 10 hours long. What I was saying, I think I definitely want one. The less exhilarating maybe. Okay, here we are. Closing time. As you can probably gather, I'm not really sure how to pose. I kind of just stand, flex. Now we're this way. That is so orange. It's cool. With this light here, very bright, sorry. With that light, you have the option to adjust the brightness and you can make it more yellow or more white. I much prefer the white lighting opposed to yellow. I think it looks a little bit more natural. Ready? Anyways, I think that's that for now. I'm gonna get back in the car. I think I'll continue to speak on the way home. I'm gonna get home, attempt not to freak out when listening to myself speaking, edit this video, and then hopefully I have it finished by tonight. It will be uploaded either late tonight or early tomorrow. We'll see. But with that, see ya. Alrighty, session is all done. It's funny. This morning I was filled with, if I'm being completely honest, a bit of anxiety in regards to filming. I was quite nervous, but now that it's done, I realize it's not a big thing. Granted, I still got to go home and edit and listen to myself speak, which is definitely a challenge within itself, but I'm sure it'll be fine. That kind of leads me to one more thing that I want to speak about before I wrap this video up, and that is in relation to fear. I think it's quite relevant now, as I've just done something that I was quite scared of. I say was quite scared of. This still freaks me out. But I will say though, after doing it, already a lot of that friction that I had created in my mind has subsided. So I want to talk about a couple of questions that I get quite often. Those questions being, A, how to deal with fear of filming yourself in the gym, And then B, taking a step back and getting over fear of starting at the gym when you have little to no experience. First, I'll talk about the fear of filming, because I know this is something that before posting TikToks, definitely went through as well. I think there are two levels of fear. There is external and internal. There is the external where you are worried or conscious of what people will think of you. And then there is internal when it's just uncomfortable for you because you yourself. I guess internal kind of is a reflection of external fear. And I think there's one sentence that I remind myself quite often and tell people, whatever it may be in life, whether it's filming in the gym, starting in the gym, whatever it may be, whatever you think of when I talk about something you're scared of because of how others may perceive you. Imagine 10, 20, 30 years down the line, you're having a conversation with your son and you're talking about something that you really would have loved to pursue, but you didn't. And your son asks you, why didn't you do this? You seem so keen about it. When you speak to me about it, your eyes light up. Why didn't you pursue it? Look at him and you say, oh, I was just worried about how other people would view me. Doesn't that sound like the most upsetting thing in the world? There's nothing that I can think of that crushes me more than regret. I am a strong believer that not trying something will always be much worse than the regret of trying something and it not working out perfectly. And that's kind of how I phrased my way of thinking with this YouTube video. Although the fear was much more internal and just being uncomfortable opposed to how it will be perceived, I asked myself, how will I feel if in months, years' time, I look back and think, man, I really would have liked to post on YouTube, but I never did because I was scared. I think that regret would eat at me a lot more than posting a video, me maybe not speaking perfectly, being a bit nervous, whatever it may be. Like I said earlier, I think I said, this video, it's just about getting it out there. I'm not aiming for perfection. I don't think that you ever will be perfect the first time you do anything. That being said, I think the more times you try, not only will it get easier, but the quality will improve. So that's kind of external fear. And then when it comes to internal, being scared of doing things because you've never done it before, and that feeling of it being unnatural and uncomfortable, I guess it's one of those things where it's very human. Of course, if you haven't done something before, it's going to feel unnatural. That's just, how it is. That being said, the more you do it, even if at first it seems super uncomfortable, it will eventually become more natural. And I think that's kind of the only way to get around this kind of fear. I don't think there ever would have been a perfect time for me to record this video. Like I mentioned, I'm a little bit under the weather. I'm not feeling 100%. And with that, I could have been like, oh, I'll push it back. But I knew that if I wasn't sick, I'd be able to come up with some other coping mechanism to procrastinate further. And it would never be the perfect time. And that's kind of why I've jumped into it today. Last thing I will say before I say goodbye for now, as I'm approaching home, is, and I hope if there is one thing you can take from this video, it is this. If there is something in your life that you want to pursue, that you want to go for, please don't let anyone, or even yourself, stop you from doing that. Even if the odds of succeeding, and I know this sounds cliche, but I really do believe it, even if the odds of succeeding are low, or you likely will get judged for it, if you know you want to do something, you have to do it. Because like I said, the regret of not trying something or not doing something will always be insurmountably worse than the regret of doing something and it not working. Right? I think very few things the first time you try it are gonna feel natural and are gonna work the way you'd love them to. But that's not a reason to stop trying. Okay guys, we are back at home now. To anyone that's watched this far, I want to say thank you. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I owe a lot of credit to you for taking this step to hop out of my comfort zone and post this video, or at least record it. I think the goal is one YouTube video a week. I think that's realistic and a promise that I can keep. Not really sure how to do the outro things or how to end it, but I think a goodbye will suffice. Again, thank you so much. And bye.